Very good evening, everyone. My name's Vibha Kagzi. I'm the founder and chief education officer here at ReachIvy.com. And as you all know, we have started the series called House of Experts to bring to you every week an expert from a different domain who is going to share their life journeys. And we're fortunate today to have Abha Singh with us. Thank you, Abha ji, for taking on this request. It's very, very kind of you. I know you're really busy. So firstly, a big thank you from my end and from all the audience. Thank you for doing this.
But Vibha, you're doing such a lovely job, the way you are connecting with students and taking them to some of the best universities in the US. And I knew through you, I would be connecting with all the youth of this country and the youth which is aspirational. So I'm really looking forward to talking to all of them.
Absolutely. And we're going to make sure that after the live session also, we will relay this conversation across all our platforms, because we definitely want your voice to be heard. You're an inspiration for me personally as well. So doing this show with you is a personal honor for me. So thank you so much for taking on the request. Guys, I'm just going to give it a brief introduction about Abha ji, and a lot of her story will unravel as she speaks here today. Abha ji actually has done many, many roles. She's a civil servant, so she's been in the postal services. She spent time with the customs office. And then somewhere along her journey, she shed that life and she sort of metamorphosed into becoming a corporate lawyer. So she's literally had two very distinct roles, and she's going to talk to us a little bit about her past avatar and her new avatar and how it all ties up. What I really admire about Abha ji is that unlike a lot of other lawyers, Abha ji decided to use her position in law towards social causes, and she's going to be talking a little bit about her social causes, some of them very prominent, some of them not so prominent but equally important. So without much ado, Abha ji, I'm going to jump into our very first question. And as you know, we are an education organization. So my first question to you, as with all guests, is if you could just walk us through a little bit of your academic journey and tell us along the way, where did law figure, and at what point did you say, okay, this is it, I want to be a lawyer?
I'm really glad to be on the ReachIvy platform, and Vibha, it's really wonderful. And the career for me, I should start from the state I came from, because a lot of your students this state has been a lot in news because you've had all the migrants running back to Uttar Pradesh. These are the least developed states of the country where girl child education and things like that are not very easy. But we were lucky that our parents were in the services and they insisted that we should get good education, because I would definitely, and that was the time when girls, there's been a change now. I see now for parents, a career of a girl is more important, marriage is secondary. But in our generation, marriage was first, career was secondary. Absolutely. So I got married much before thinking of anything, and I was barely 21. Mine was a marriage where I did not even meet my husband. I met him at the marriage. There was no dating and wooing, as you say. Okay. So in fact, I would start with this anecdote that when I came to Mumbai, and my husband's friend came to meet me, and he kept looking at me, and I was wondering, why is he looking at me like this? After some time he says, "Oh, you can speak in English."
Wow.
I was aghast. So he said, no, he had told me that he was marrying a girl from UP without seeing, and I thought that would be all girls in Ghungat with no education. And at that time I was studying in Jawaharlal Nehru University.
So that's I have stereotype that you were trying to, yeah. Wow, that was the era, and that was the...
That's why I say, that's why a platform like yours, education is something which empowers you absolutely, and the biggest vehicle of change is education. So I was a very good student. Good at speaking, articulate, and of course, happy-go-lucky. So did my master's in political science, and that is why my interest in the country's affairs is very important. Then I went to JNU, that is very much in news even now because of all the activities and issues. But I did international relations. I studied United Nations and the rights of child. My thesis was on human rights. And then I came to Maharashtra, and I was a housewife for 2-3 years. And then I realized I would be wasting my talent.
Right.
And that is why my message to everyone is make use of the knowledge which you have. And I took the civil services. This is the toughest exam in the country. Even this year, I was just reading today, 10 lakh. 1 million students are appearing every year. 1 million students take this exam. So I cleared the exam and I became a custom officer in Bombay. And then I joined the postal services. So I've cleared the civil services twice. And then gradually the transition to law came because I realized being in the government, you are tied down with too many rules and regulations.
Sure.
You would never hear a bureaucrat speaking out and saying what is wrong with the system. Yes. In fact, a lot of your children who go abroad and they don't want to come back to India because they realize that in the US, the system works. There is accountability and transparency. And in India, it is more about you are a VIP, you have what contacts you have, what connections you have. So then I realized that we need to come in the social field. We need to jump into a different field and ensure that motivate the people, I would say, and that was what it is about.
So
and
at what age did you do the exams for law, and at what age did you make that shift?
You know, exactly, this is another very interesting story, like how we came into law. My husband was in the Indian Police Service Maharashtra cadre, and while he was in CBI, he did some very big cases where he antagonized, I would say, ruffled the feathers of all the big corporates or the politicians. So they transferred him out of Bombay. So he said, I'm not going to take things lying low. And he went to the court. And even today, I would like to share with everyone that your own issue, you can be the lawyer in your own case. You cannot do it as a profession, but if it's something which is harming you, you can't afford a lawyer, you can argue your own case. And that is what my husband did. So this was, I would say, in the 95, 96. So I was in my early 30s. I'd had both my children. I would carry his books and he would argue in Bombay High Court. So I was a fence sitter and I would see and I would realize, oh my God, all the injustice which is meted to you in the system, you can speak out, fight it out as a lawyer. And then I realized what is the strength of a black gown which we wear, that's, and that was the time I felt that actually the courts are a real temple of justice. And my husband won in the Supreme Court. In fact, at that time, he defeated Kapil Sibal without a law degree. So that inspired me. I said, look, your natural calling is law. So he shifted to law in the year 2005. And at that time, I was Director Postal Services over here and my children were small. I was in my late 30s and we both decided to enroll in Bombay University. And I clearly remember in 2001, he graduated, he did his law from Bombay University and in 2002. So that makes it almost 36, 37. Yeah, and I had both my children. My son was 13, 14. My daughter was 5, 6. So that was the time we did law. And we did it while working in the government. We joined the evening classes, not the regular classes. But then as I say, where there is a will, there is a way. Working for the government, doing morning classes, doing your moots. And we cleared the law degree. And 2005, he joined. And in 2012, I remember I submitted my resignation. I took my retirement, I would say, my VRS, that's the scheme, the voluntary scheme.
Retirement scheme,
Yeah, so I put in my papers because we felt that you are stifled. You can't speak out what the wrongs are. And I somehow felt I needed to be with the people and speak up for them. Like I always say, I am the voice of the silenced millions in India.
In the last 2 minutes or so, you've said so many inspiring things. I'm just going to recap. So the main takeaways I've got from this is like, it's never too late. You did this in your late 30s, your husband did it in his 30s, etc. It's never too late to make a shift. A lot of people, I meet a lot of youngsters and they say, I'm 27, I've spent my life doing this. How can I make a move? You're a living example of someone who made a move in their late 30s and successfully transitioned to doing what you love. I think the third takeaway for me is like, do what you believe in. You believed in this cause and, you're living every moment of your life doing truly what you believe in.
Absolutely. Passion.
Passion, yeah. And the
It's
fourth takeaway was like you were working in the government and you were doing your moots and you were studying and attending law school. Like, a lot of youngsters with the whole like millennial entitlement are just like, oh, I'm already drowning. I have this job where I'm working 9 to 5 and after that I have no energy. So I think this is also a fabulous takeaway that, push your boundaries. We define our own boundaries for ourselves and
yeah,
you really
absolutely, absolutely.
you
Of
pushed your
course.
limits, of course. Wow, that's very like amazing. You just kickstarted the show and like on a very high note.
Yeah,
Okay,
exactly.
so so it's been about 8-10 years now, right? Like you said, 2012
Yeah.
to
Yeah,
now.
so 2013, exactly. 2013, I donned the robes of the lawyer court and I was in the court. Yeah.
Okay, so now let's span this sort of 8 to 10 year journey and talk to us a little bit about some of the important cases, and we can maybe talk about the Salman Khan case first and get that out because I know a lot of people want to hear about that. And after we talk
Yeah.
about the sort of high profile Salman Khan, let's also talk a little bit about more grassroots level cases. So why don't we jump into the Salman Khan one and just take that
Yeah,
head on?
exactly. Salman Khan was the first case which I argued in the court.
Oh
And
wow,
can
okay.
you imagine? I mean, you know, I remember Bandra court it was, and when I went and suddenly I saw, a lot of people with Salman, and you had the local MLA Baba Siddiqui, and he got a lot of slum dwellers with banners that we love Salman and you can't do this case. And then I told the judge, I said, look, it's not about Salman Khan, it is about drunken driving. It is a hit and run case. And the message which has to go that India does not distinguish between the rich and the poor. If you
Absolutely.
have committed an offense, then you have to face the law. And that is why this issue I have taken up. And what was surprising that the case was lying low for the last 10 years. And that is the first thing I realized, that if you manage your case, that's what I said, if you manage things, your case will never come on board. It will
Hmm.
languish for years and years. And by the time you have had the best time of your life and you go scot-free, so many cases don't see the light of the day. So then I'm happy that when the case came to Sessions Court, the Sessions Court upheld the hit and run case and Salman was given 5 years imprisonment. Of course, it's a different matter that by the time it came to High Court, he managed to get out of it. And so many irregularities were there that even before the order was uploaded, the High Court judge gave him bail. But what is worrisome in this case, my takeaway is that when he was let off by the High Court, the Bombay police gave a circular saying that these are the 16 points where the police has erred. So if the police does not investigate properly, if the police is compromised, you have a poor conviction rate. Like if I just tell you about rape cases,
Yeah.
conviction rate in rape cases is just 32%. That
Hmm.
means out of 100 rapists, 68 go scot-free because the police either has not investigated, the police has not done the forensics. So that
So
was my first
this is, you're saying
exposure
it's
to this
36
issue.
out of 100 reported cases, right? So there's
Yes.
also all these cases
Yeah,
that are
out of
left
reported. Yeah,
unreported.
yeah. So these are the government figures, that 32% conviction, and crime is high in India primarily because of the low conviction rate.
Sure.
So, in this case also, because it was delayed, but of course the government realized its mistakes and it went in appeal. The matter is still in the Supreme Court, and we are hoping that it would be taken to the logical conclusion, just like in Sanjay Dutt's case, he had to go to jail.
Hmm.
And another issue, but the biggest
So are
fallout of this case
are
was,
you still hoping that it will happen? Are you still optimistic
yeah,
that
yeah,
yes?
but the biggest fallout of this case was that Mumbai police also agrees that lot of drunken driving cases have gone down.
Hmm.
Now when children take the car, the parents ensure that there's a driver, or they will tell them that you please don't drink and drive. So
Sure.
the impact of this case was that it had a larger impact that drunken driving cases went down.
Sure.
So Salman Khan case that way has been a lesson for all the youngsters. And
Absolutely. So when
so
you were
your
taking
another message, another takeaway, your
sure
hard work never goes waste.
hard work
Hard
now,
work
yes,
never
of
goes
course.
waste.
And what sort of gave you the conviction to take on this case, right? Because it was a tricky case. You're dealing with a celebrity, you knew what was standing in your way. What gave you the courage to take on the case? And someone was asking in the chat, Vaishnavi, like, ma'am, how did you prepare for a case like this?
You know, first was collecting all the papers, that where was, in fact, this case brought it out that all the witnesses who were there when this accident took place, there were almost 60, 70 witnesses in the whole case. And when the court sent summons, they all had disappeared. Mumbai police kept saying, this person can't be found, that person can't be found. In fact, the cop who was his bodyguard, he also died under mysterious circumstances. So, so these are the things that I realized, that how can this important case where a person died, one person was badly injured, and how come this has not been tried and not taken to the logical conclusion? How conviction is not taking place? So collecting the papers, preparing the case, it was hard work, but at least a lot of things came out, and it exposed the system that you don't have witness protection in this country. If you are rich and powerful, you will ensure that the opposite side succumbs to all the pressure. A lot of witnesses were not ready to come and depose to the court. In fact, there was this singer Kamal Khan who was sitting in the vehicle when Salman was driving. Kamal Khan was given permission by the police to leave the country.
Wow. Okay.
He came to the court. He gave an undertaking that whenever I am called to depose, I will come. And you will not believe it that Kamal Khan never came back to India. He's somewhere in UK. And this is what I told the court. I said the biggest, the bodyguard who was the witness, he is dead. The second person who was there in the car, he has managed to run away from the country, and we are not bringing him back. In fact, luckily now, with so much of hue and cry and people getting involved, you are getting people like Malya being extradited. Right. But Kamal Khan, Mumbai police never went for his extradition. So these were the reasons why, but it showed the loopholes in the judicial system. So my one case was exemplary, that how judiciary justice can be compromised.
Okay. So, very inspiring. And of course, clearly you like to be a voice for the people. You're also trying to sort of negate this whole, polarizing we see in our society, which is very evident in India, the rich versus the poor. Can we talk maybe a little bit more about a recent case, anything that you're seeing perhaps with migrant workers? I know you're doing some work on migrant labor reforms as well. Since it's topical and since it's what we're all experiencing right now, if you could just touch a little bit about one of these cases, please.
Yeah, some of the cases which I filed in Bombay High Court, one was that making of the ramps for the disabled, for the wheelchairs. As you see, Mumbai doesn't have too many ramps. So we cited the law in Bombay High Court. I was one of the petitioners and I was arguing the case. And we told the court that how can you give an occupation certificate if they don't comply with these norms? And luckily, Bombay High Court, the Chief Justice passed an instruction and said you will not make any new buildings without having the proper ramps. In fact, a lot of you, the youngsters, must be going to Tamasha in Kamla Mills. Yeah. It did not have a ramp. After this PIL of mine, it made a new ramp. In fact, NGMA, National Gallery of Modern Art, did not have a ramp for the disabled. They made one and they informed me. So this is how we are trying to bring a change. In fact, there have been a lot of deaths of manual scavengers, the people who go down the septic tanks to clean, So the Supreme Court guideline says that you must give them a job if they die on duty. You must give them a compensation. And what is surprising, that Maharashtra government has not given compensation to a single manual scavenger. Not only that, in a time when there is so much of automation, there is technology, why do you let a poor person, because of poverty, go down the drain to do manual cleaning? So this is one PIL which I am pursuing, and I'm hoping that we will get some guidelines. And lives, you can't lose lives just because people don't follow the guidelines. So, but yes, for the migrant, I have taken it up because this is not only a problem which is India based, because I feel it is China which is responsible, because had China informed WHO on the right time, had that pandemic been declared in December, January, maybe we could have stopped the international flights. So when now everybody is saying that India has messed up, India could not handle it, I'm saying the problems India is facing today is for China and WHO. And we have filed one with the Human Rights Council in Geneva, where I'm saying China must give us compensation. Also, I've gone up to United Nations where I wanted them to take up this matter, but the UN has asked me that you please come to the country, because UN, you need to go through the country. Sure. But at the Human Rights Council, as an individual, I can move, and that is I'm pursuing. But in India, I feel the migrants, the Interstate Migrant Act, this is another folly, that you make laws, but they are just on paper. And this act said that migrants, if they move out, they should get displacement allowance. They should be given their salaries. They should, everything it talks of. But if you see the reality, nobody even paid their fares. They were on the roads. Their jobs were terminated. So I'm trying to say, well, what is the point of having an Interstate Migrant Workmen Act? Why do you have an act which is not at all applicable, which has so many loopholes? Again, UP has just now come with an ordinance. You know, in spite of all this, when 20 lakh migrants have reached UP in distress, UP government has come out with an ordinance which says you can't form associations, you can't form unions for the labor. They are trying to mend the labor laws so that the laborers do not have a voice. In fact, Factories Act says that maximum hours of work should be 8 hours, and if you work after 8 hours, you should get an overtime. UP government came with this thing saying from 8 to 12 hours without overtime. Luckily, one PIL was filed by someone in Allahabad High Court, and this order was withdrawn. So I'm trying to tell the people that we have labor laws, but somehow they have those loopholes by which they don't get justice. So we are demanding a new labor code which protects the interests of the laborers.
Okay. So I'll take a question here from Surbhi Samdani, who says, you know, how do you prepare yourself with so many challenges in India? I'll just paraphrase. So like with so many problems, right? We're just sort of, you know, saddled with problems in India. How do you pick the cases? Like, how do you decide what are the causes that you want to pursue?
You know, like, as I said, I quit the government. I had 15 years of the civil services job still left, but it was my passion to work for the marginalized, for the women. I'm a strong gender justice crusader. So these are the issues I take up. Like, as I said, the manual scavengers, I felt it is very unfair. And in fact, these women, you know, when the people in society in which these women, the husbands had died, you know, they said, why are you going to the court? So, you know, that widow told me, she said, I told the chairman of the society, I will pay you, you go down the drain and clean it up. You know, I mean, you are saying, saying, why am I fighting? So then you feel, you know, when these women come to the court. So how I choose cases, as I said, something which has a larger impact to the society. I don't take up individual cases that you say, oh, I am being troubled, this, that. I said, no. Any case which has a larger impact, which affects the society, like the ramps, because it was affecting the rights of the disabled. Scavengers, it will be manual scavengers, pan-India. Then even hit and run was something, because I thought drunken driving, we have so many cases every year of drunken driving. So I generally pick up cases where I feel I'm challenged, that this is going to give me a tough battle in the court. So, and when you have the BMC lawyers and you have environmental lawyers, you know, all the government, in fact,
so the more complex the case.
In one of the cases, I'll see at least 10 lawyers versus me, you know, it will be, you know, government different departments. So I think challenge. And since for me, it's a passion, it is not a job. You know, the moment you take something as a job, you are tired, you are disinterested. But when it is your passion, I think
it comes naturally.
You're never tired, and you don't feel you're overworked. And you're not overworked, because but it is hard work. Law is not an easy field, because it requires a lot of research. It requires, and as like I always say, it is an exam every day in the court, because either you win or you lose. Your opponent, you know, you have a
and you get your mark sheet every day. You get your mark sheet right then, right?
You know, and your mark sheet is the face of your client,
right?
Because you know, it's so sad at times that you feel that, oh, I did not win the case, because you see that fallen face of your client and you say, oh my God. But then luckily you have another court, from High Court, you go to the Supreme Court. And, but yes.
Okay, so a couple of thoughts are coming as you're speaking. Lead follow-on question. So you spoke a little bit about, you know, being a woman, you're obviously, you know, an advocate for female issues. What is the legal system like, since you have this inside purview that we don't? As a lawyer, like, do you feel any disadvantage when you're out there and you're speaking to judges, etc.? Do you feel submerged? I mean, with your kind of voice and potency, I wonder if that might happen. But still, does that happen to other female lawyers? Both when you're fighting the case, you know, for the client, and just as a client itself, you know, do you feel female clients are any sort of disadvantage? I'll ask my next question after you answer this.
Yeah, you know, as a woman lawyer, I would say I'm lucky to be in a state like Maharashtra, because here there is nothing like this. Not once did I feel, but had I been in a state like UP, people would have been aghast, because there are certain professions which are male dominated, and you would still feel, you know, going to those lower courts where people would say, oh, you know, whatever. But Maharashtra, I was very lucky, because I mean, not once have I felt at any disadvantage being a female. So from that part, I would say. But for a female who's fighting a case, when there, I would say women are at a loss, because number one, in a lot of cases of domestic violence or divorce, I've seen women do not have the financial capacity. Even the Me Too movement, why it is fizzling out in this country, because if you see the women who've come forward, they cannot get some of the top lawyers or a big battery of lawyers as these men. Like if I talk of the minister who had to step down, he gets all the top lawyers in Supreme Court, and here these women are struggling to, for legal help. So why women are disadvantaged is because they don't have finance. Even in divorce cases, it's a very lengthy process. Court takes time. And then from lower court, it's to high court, to Supreme Court. So perseverance and a long time and finances. So that is the reason that women don't want to come and fight out. And even if they've been beaten in their homes, they somehow try to not come to the court. And in some I've seen where women have come, their children only say, oh, why are you fighting? Because I would lose out my inheritance. Or the father, they see the father has the money which the mother doesn't have. So it pains me at times that a mother who spent so much time on her child, and when she has a problem with her husband, the children take the father's side because they see which side the bread is buttered. Most of the cases. So that is where I feel, and that is why then I say, no, don't worry, I'm going to do your case pro bono, because I feel that it is something which would give a message to the husbands that, money cannot buy everything.
Okay. So it boils down to financial security and the ability to spend money ultimately. Okay, that's actually really sad. I'll take a question here from Shloka Mehta, who asks, there are several arguments that the legal challenges in India stem from colonial India, from the British legacy. Is there any truth to this statement? Are we burdened with
Of course, the law what we have, the criminal, the ICRPC and the IPC, the Indian Penal Code, they were all made by the Britishers. So like the section you have of sedition, and it is being misused. So, where, these laws require to be changed. So, definitely it is a colonial era which has given us these laws, certain, but still it has been working. So, I would not condemn it totally, but it does require judicial reforms. Things like archaic laws like sedition, defamation, because you say something and immediately it is said you are defaming. Like even the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act, which of course is a later act, not given to us by the Britishers. But like you had that Safura girl who was denied bail for the third time. Yeah. Like even, if you are agitating, like they said she was blocking the road. The charge was blocking the road. And for blocking the road, a terrorist charge is put on you. So somewhere these laws require a change. And we can't blame the Britishers for all the laws, but for some we can.
Sure. Okay. The British did do a lot of good to our country as well. So thank God you're not British bashing like a lot of people do.
Yeah. Definitely. The education, the democracy. I would say the human rights, Yeah, certain things you have to accept.
Okay, so you alluded to this a bit before, about just the amount of delays in the system, and obviously we all know the common refrain that justice delayed is justice denied. So if you could just give us again an insider view on like what is the magnitude of the problem we're dealing with in India, like how many cases are just sort of sitting there. And when a client comes to you, do they come to you with this apprehension? Because if I think about something happening, I'm like, I'm never going to take it to court because I'll probably die before this case sees the day of light. So what is your thought on this issue, and what is the way around it? Is there something systemically going on to deal with this, or does the government just put their hands up and said, we just can't do anything?
Of course, there are lots and lots of cases, I would say millions of cases which are pending in the lower courts. We have not been able to computerize the judiciary totally because as you see in COVID now they are talking of doing video conferencing cases through video conferencing. They could have done it much before. And in fact, a lot of people who come to me, they say, in how many days our case will be decided? I said, I can't tell you that. Because it can go for 10 years, 15 years. Although like in family court cases, they say in 6 months you should get a judgment. In other cases, it takes years. Asaram case is going on for the last 7-8 years, So even Vijay Mallya, we've not been able to extradite him. It's been almost 2 years, 3 years, more than that.
And Nirbhaya took its own time, Nirbhaya went on forever. Yeah.
So, what happens that we don't have the, you are prepared and you go to the court, the other side lawyer is not there, or the judge is not sitting, or the bench is, bench is closed, things like that. So I feel the time has come that, like you talked of fast track courts. After Nirbhaya case, we had said we'll have fast track courts.
Yeah.
So fast track court is fine. Fast track court means you give justice in 90 days. Fast track courts are meant for crime against women, against children. So, but you said 90 days only once the case reaches the court and the trial starts. You did not put a cap on the time a police officer is going to take to file the charge sheet. How much time will the police investigate? So in many cases, the police would not file the case. It does not reach the court. So how can the trial start? In the Sheena Bora case, they did not even write the FIR. It was, the body went, a burnt body was found, but police did not register an FIR. After 5 years, couple of years, one person was caught and who said that this girl was murdered by so-and-so. And then the case came in. So, the biggest thing I feel is the corruption in the system. Corruption is responsible for a lot of tragedies, and the biggest thing is that the police gets compromised. The police does not file the case. It does not reach the court. So first delay is there. So I feel now the government, the parliament should make a law saying that this is the time frame. If you said 90 days for the fast track court, then the police investigation should also be over in 60 days. Sure. And at that time, police will say, we have other work of law and order, bandobast, we don't get the time to do the investigation. And if you make us hurry, like the Arushi murder case, there are two thoughts that who murdered. Even today, people say they don't know. So the police will say, if you pressurize us, we will not be able to give in our best. So it requires a revisit. That all the stakeholders need to come, the judiciary, the prosecution and the police. These are the three stakeholders of the criminal justice system. So, and then again, if you lose in the lower court, you go to the high court, then from high court to the Supreme Court. I feel that also needs a change. When a high court has decided, why do you need to go to the Supreme Court? That means you don't have faith on the judgment of the high court.
Correct. Yeah.
Like Sessions Court, if I come back to Salman Khan case, Sessions Court, for that same hit and run, gave him a 5-year imprisonment. When he went in appeal to High Court let him go scot-free. So you mean to say, then you should fix a responsibility that the Sessions Court judge was wrong, he did not look into it. Yeah. Or when now Supreme Court decides, no, Salman should be punished, so that means the High Court has erred. So these three layers, I think we need to take out one. And when you go in appeal, you should only go on certain parameters. The time for judicial reforms is required. Salman case has been going on for 20 years. So that's how it is.
When it's getting just tossed on from one authority to the other, you're demeaning the authority of the previous one, right? So
exactly. It raises questions. It raises questions. But then we say, you are not guilty till you are proven. Right. And you are given different layers. So if somebody has erred, but I think that is too much because it becomes very expensive. For the client, it becomes very expensive, lower court, high court, Supreme Court. I know this lady who went from high court to Supreme Court and her case got dismissed. But in that 1 year, she spent almost 1 crore on the case because it was pertaining to land. So can you imagine? And Supreme Court, there are lawyers who charge 20 lakhs per appearance, 10 lakhs per appearance. I mean, it's bizarre. It's bizarre. So I think there should be a capping. There should be a capping on the lawyer's fee also.
Right.
They'll kill me, I'm sure. I'm sure if they're listening, they'll kill me that
I was first going to say we'll edit that part, and I'm going to say we're going to edit this part and only put that clipping out everywhere. That's what people really need to hear. I'll take a quick question.
Because I'm a people's lawyer. I'm a people's lawyer. I feel, in fact, I do so many pro bono because I said, for me, my mission was not here to make money. It was to get justice, to ensure that people whose voices are not heard, they also come out and they get justice. So I feel this, I really feel strongly that we need to see to it that justice is not denied to anyone.
Wow, that's a beautiful mission. I'm going to quickly take a question from Mirkaba, who's asking about child labor law. He's talking about, when people turn to the court for child labor, is there a sympathetic view saying this is, this child is a sole bread earner and therefore needs the money? or are there, he's asking, there are firm sort of rules against child labor, and if there's something that as civilians we can do about this?
Like the Juvenile Justice Act, it defines a child below 18. But the labor laws say that a child before 14 should not be allowed to work in a hazardous organization like the mines and all. But child labor till 14, of course, should not be allowed at all. But yes, what he said about the humanitarian, lot of children. In fact, migrant, I'll come to it, I'll digress a little. There was this girl, 12-year-old girl, Jamla Magdam, who walked with her parents from Telangana to Chhattisgarh. 12-year-old girl walking with her parents but she died on the third day. So I have complained to the National Commission for the Protection of Children. I've written to NCPCR saying that how could a 12-year-old girl work in chili fields in Telangana? Because up to 14 years, you say 14 years, you should not. Right. So that the law says that. But then poverty becomes such an issue that you have these children working in these industries, carpet industry, but of course they all have been declared hazardous. So children below 14 should not be working in hazardous fields. But in other places like dhabas and all, you would see children working. So again, that poverty, what the condition in India is that children are the breadwinners. You have to take a holistic approach. But I would also say if they are working as a house help, they are better looked after. They have a lighter work rather than working in factories. But yes, a child below 18 is not supposed to be working. So we have laws. We have laws to protect them. Labor laws are there. But as I said, labor laws continue to remain on paper because corruption. You bribe the labor inspector, and if you are engaging a child laborer, you can go scot-free.
Sure. So the real Chiru, as you're saying, yes, lots of gray area. Merkaba, I hope that answered your question. Taking a question from Gauri Kantinath. What do you like and dislike most about being a lawyer? So maybe 2 or 3 things that you love.
What I love is that you get instant justice. If you win a case because you feel that this is something like for my manual scavengers, those widows, if they get their compensation and they get their job. So you immediately feel that yes, you could fight it out, you could give them justice, you can bring a smile to a person who's distressed.
So outcome, you like the outcome. Best. Yeah, that's the best part.
Yeah, I like the outcome. No, and also I like the process. I like the process because injustice enrages me. It makes me angry. So the process that I can raise my voice, I can fight back, I can call a spade in court, and I can fight against injustice. So that is something else what I like, because judiciary gives me that power. In fact, at times I say, I've worn my black coat, don't mess with me, I'm a lawyer.
It's like your weapon. You're using it as your hathiyar in some ways.
Yeah, so it empowers you. And that was the reason I studied law, because, so I think this is what I like the most. And what I don't like about law is the time it takes for a case to, like you say, tariq pe tariq, that it goes on for years to years. So that is what I don't like about it. And sometimes, of course, the arguments get very personal, they get very nasty, these are things. But on the whole, I feel because it is in an open court, courts are still better because the judge also knows that everybody is hearing, like others.
Has that happened with you? Have you been in a situation where someone's made sort of a snide personal remark in court?
See, like I would say that AIB roast. I mean, a lot of youngsters who would be listening would be a little annoyed. But when I did that AIB roast case, because I felt that the words which were being used were quite derogatory to the women and the law, because it was taking place in NSCI, and NSCI is public space. So, it was coming under 294 of the IPC, the obscenity part, and also the IT Act I had quoted. And I got these FIRs on all of them, including Karan Johar. And in fact, because of my case, the AIB roast could not find way in India. And at that time, a lot of people, they started tweeting and, a lot of hate mail because they said freedom of speech and things. So it does come on you personal. Even in Salman Khan case, the fan, they went, they were trolling me badly. So you have to bear the brunt. But if you are committed and you feel what you're doing is right, even so, I feel it doesn't affect. It doesn't hurt you that what you feel. People say, oh, you are celebrity chaser. You are just hitting out at these people. But I say no, because they are the role model. So if they are drug addicts, I have to say you are a drug addict. If you are helping the terrorists, I have to say, because I don't want the youth who's following you crazy.
Right.
So you have to stop them, you know. So I mean, but on the whole, law is a very good profession, and I feel ReachIvy should start guiding students for Harvard Law School and Yale Law School. You know, like
so we do actually help a lot of kids get into top tier law schools, and of course, I think you've obviously taken a lot of potent steps, and I love the way that you've channeled your career to really do what you believe in. A lot of people, I mean, I have lots of friends who are lawyers, and a lot of them are just taking the easier route, right? They're just corporate lawyers, or and it's fine. Like no offense to any of them, but for you, it seems more like it's a passion space. You've been able to channel your angst. A lot of us, we have this anger and angst and we do nothing about it against the system, but you're really someone who's just channelizing your anger and angst and actually doing something about it, which is also, I think, a very good message for young people, because a lot of them wallow in this anger,
Yeah, in fact, I'll tell you, we were doing this protest. You remember this 8-year-old girl in Jammu Kashmir who was raped and murdered, that killed that little girl. I don't want to take her name. And there were protests all over India. So we did one at Carter Road. So we were a couple of NGOs who decided to do it. I run an NGO called Run Summer, through which I try to take up these issues also in gender justice, women empowerment. So when we went to police for the permission, the police, Santa Cruz police station, said you cannot use a loudspeaker. So everybody said, what do we do? So they said, okay, let's take the permission as it is. But you see, you hold a protest, and if you're not allowed to use a loudspeaker, how do you address 1,000 people? And that is what it happened. So that is the best way to kill your dissent. And I took it, I said, okay, I made a mental note. We went for the protest, we had banners and everything. But after it was over, I went back to the High Court and I filed a PIL in front of the Chief Justice of Bombay High Court. And I said, right to dissent is my fundamental right. It is a democracy is based on right to dissent. And I said, when you deny me a loudspeaker, you are hitting at my voice. And believe me, Bombay police was summoned. The DCP who was giving these orders, they were called to the court. And the Chief Justice said that you cannot deny a loudspeaker to a peaceful protest. And finally, the High Court order said that in non-silence zones, you can hold protests with loudspeaker. So even that small thing, I had to get it from the court. And now pan-India, everyone in India is calling me up to say, can you give us your order? Because the police denies us permission to use a loudspeaker. And I told the judge, I said, even during the time of Britishers, we were allowed to use loudspeakers. Had these loudspeakers not been there, what would have happened to the freedom movement?
Sure, absolutely.
So I got that. So even that protest, which I did 2 years back, I went back to the court. So these are the things which I take up, which I feel affect the common man. So and I would say, yes, youth can do a big change. So more lawyers should come from all those who are hearing this interview.
What you're saying is reminding me of a French philosopher, Voltaire. Voltaire said, I may not agree with what you have to say, but I will never deny you the right to say it, and it ties in so beautifully. And it's one of my favorite quotes, because as the police or the governance, or you don't have a right, you might not agree with what people have to say, but you have to allow them the right to say what they have to.
Absolutely. So like if the student movements are taking place, you have to accept.
You have to accept, yes.
You have to accept,
We are a democracy, and that's what we stand for.
We are a democracy. Absolutely. Your biggest right, I would say, is your freedom of speech and expression.
Absolutely.
That is what your voice makes you different from the animals. They can't speak and you can speak. So, Maslow's theory of self-actualization, if you talk of, if I don't have a voice, I would say I'm dead the day I can't speak and I can't express.
Yeah, and the day you're not heard.
Your living is not worth living. Your living is not worth living.
Sure. I'll take
You
a
know?
quick question here from Rajiv Podar, who's actually he's a businessman, and he asks about labor laws because they run a bunch of factories. So he's asking, as entrepreneurs and business people, we feel the labor laws are outdated. Do you agree? And if yes, what changes would you like to see in labor laws?
Labor laws, I feel you need to redraw the labor code, get all the stakeholders, the establishment owners, the laborers, the government, all three should come together and then rework it, because in this migrant crisis, the biggest issue which has come out is that none of the migrants had anything in writing. The written contract was not there. It
Hmm.
was all verbal. So, and that was the reason that they were terminated. Even today, if the laborer wants to go to the court, he
Hmm.
has no paper to show that he was working there. Secondly, if the establishment owners feel that it is one-sided, we are talking only of the migrant issue, we are not talking of their problems. So I feel that the labor ministry needs to bring all the stakeholders on board. Because
Hmm.
today, if the migrants have gone away, how will these people do their factories? They
They
can't
can't run
start
their
without
factories.
the
Yes.
labor.
Yes.
So now, in fact, I was reading in Karnataka and all, a lot of construction companies are giving them flight tickets to come back, but the
Hmm.
laborers don't want to come. So you require confidence on both the sides. But the owners say that labor unions create a lot of problem, and that is the reason that UP government came out with that ordinance. For the next 3 years, there are going to be no unions. But
Hmm.
that is also not right, because without unions, how do you get them to tell what problems are there? But I still feel both the sides should sit, and you should not exploit. One should not exploit the other.
Other.
As
Hmm.
long as, as long as both are benefiting, because they need their jobs, and you can't do like, you can't work without them, because ultimately the migrants have played a tremendous role in the
Absolutely.
GDP. In fact, these migrants who've come from UP, Bihar, every year they are sending 7,500 crores to their native places.
Sure.
International remittances are 60,000 crores. So such amount of money is being created by labor. So you definitely need to rework, and it should be, of course, the only problem I think the employers have is the unions,
Right.
because they disrupt the work. But
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 I
if you streamline it, if the system works, why
sure.
should the unions have an upper hand? Unions have an upper hand when the labor is exploited.
When they're not
So
happy,
I
of
think that,
course. Yeah.
yeah. So, and the government also needs to be proactive. You have laws, you don't have a social security number. None
Right.
of the laborers in this country have a social security number.
Right.
When in 2008, they talked of a social security act, but the act remained in paper.
Sure.
So this has been a very neglected area. And I
Hmm.
think after this crisis, the government will think about it, and all the stakeholders will come together.
Yeah.
In fact, the International Labour Conventions, India is a signatory to the International Labour Conventions, which talks of a tripartite agreements. So I think we need to rework them absolutely.
And while the government would also see this, I feel even business owners, industrialists are also realizing that their businesses have come to a standstill, right? So a lot of international demand has started, and they're not able to produce, they're not able to
Yeah.
manufacture. Existing contracts are getting uh, defaulted on. So I think, as you said, all stakeholders are now realizing the value that one another had,
Yeah,
which
exactly.
previously was a little taken for granted
Yeah,
a bit.
if you think you are the owner, but the poor man, without his labor, you
You
can't
can't do
deliver.
anything. Exactly.
You can't do anything. So I think that
Exactly.
is what the
That's
migrants have shown.
yeah.
In fact, the Interstate Migrant Act even says that their accommodation is to be taken care of. And when
Sure.
the lockdown was ordered, the Ministry of Home Affairs order said that for 1 month you will not demand payment. So
Right.
that government's order was also, without application of mind.
Sure.
Lockdown is for almost 3 months, and you
Yeah.
say 1 month you will not demand payment. You
Right.
should have said that the laborer will stay, and we will see how rent is to be adjusted.
Correct.
You
Right.
could have given them a tax
There were,
break
yeah.
or anything like that.
So many
So,
things could have been thought about. Right.
yeah. So,
Um, okay. A little bit more just about the profession of being a lawyer. So if you had to say, like, three hard skills and three soft skills, or any top 5, 6 skills that you need to be a top level lawyer, what are some of the skills? Of course, I'm seeing very clearly that communication is definitely one of those
yeah.
strengths that you have and you need. Other than the obvious one, other than communication, what do you think makes a good lawyer? Just attributes.
Not losing your cool.
Not losing your cool. Okay.
Because the opposite side would always rile you, would say
Yeah.
something, in fact, when I went, I mean, in the government, there's so much of bureaucratism, like you are a boss and, people would be just bowing their heads. And in the court, when you're arguing, you'll see your opposite party making faces, smirking, trying to bring you down. So at that time, you should not lose your cool.
Right.
My son also argues with me in the court, and sometimes the young generation is always, getting angry, and then I'll just nudge him. I'll say, no, cool, just don't, So the biggest thing, of course, you have to be very articulate, you have to be very hardworking, meticulous, because you need to research. Your skills of research are very important, because when you are arguing, you are going to get court judgments related to your case from High Court, Supreme Court, from different sources.
Sure.
You will get your research. So your research skills have to be good. You have to read. You can't get away without reading. Without reading, understanding. And biggest thing is the court craft. The court craft is how you argue, because everything is what you can convey to the judge. He should understand. He should understand what you're trying to convey. So your speaking skills are important, but your cool is important. And to understand what is the opposite party saying, because ultimately it is an argument where you have to prove that what you are saying is right and the other person is not right.
Right.
So it is a lot of presence of mind.
Sure.
You cannot just daydream in the court.
Sure.
So you have to be alert. So these are the things which are...
You have to be in the moment at all points, not lose your cool. You said meticulous, you said well-researched, you said articulate, you said well-communicated. Okay. So that's obviously it's the coming together of a lot of skills. Someone in this chat had previously asked a question, and I'll just ask you like last one or two questions now about life at home. So can you give us a little glimpse? And I've had the good fortune of being into your home, and you're an absolutely amazing hostess, very warm and hospitable. But for those who haven't had that privilege, could you give us a sense of the home environment, like a little bit about your husband and your two children who are both amazing and on their path to becoming groundbreaking in their own ways? If you could just give us a glimpse into that.
As I said, my son is practicing with me in Bombay High Court. He's a 5-year law graduate from National Law University from Hyderabad. It's called Nalsar. And my daughter has done her 5-year law from National Law University, Bangalore. So both of them are through the CLAT, that you have the exam, and they've done pretty well. And in fact, daughter's taken the IAS written exam. She's just taken the interview. She's awaiting her result. But my son was very keen, that he said, no, I want to be in this field, and he's very happy. He's a lawyer. And husband, of course, was in the police, so he was the game changer in the sense he quit the government. Otherwise, we come from a civil services background. My sister's also in the income tax. My brother's also in the income tax. So we have all in the government. But we changed profession, and we are very happy, because we feel the amount of change we can do, the amount of help we can do, and as you said, I love keeping a nice house. You can see my books. The amount of reading that we do, and so cooking. Kitchen is not my forte. I like eating good food, but I don't cook much. So that is, I love eating out, and this lockdown has really bullied me that I'm just stuck inside the house. But yes, as a person, I have a lot of compassion. I get concerned. I try to help people. So at times my children pull me up. Oh, mom, you are too, you just get swayed by emotions. Anybody says I am unhappy, you don't see the other side. But I believe in the goodness of every person. I feel every person has some goodness. And I feel if a person is thinking that if my generosity, if you're not taking it, so I feel like that person is foolish, because I would not leave my goodness for someone evil.
Wow, that's absolutely beautiful thought. I was going to ask you two more questions, but I think I just want to end. I want to end on this beautiful note that you've just touched upon. You believe in the goodness of people, and the people who do that are truly just beautiful inside, because if you are beautiful within yourself, that's what you see around you. And I think we should just close on this beautiful note. I know we have a few more minutes,
It's
but
been great talking to you. Yeah, it's been almost, 1 hour,
almost
but
an
lovely
hour.
talking to you. And I
But
would
this was
like,
a
all the students who are there and who are aiming to achieve great heights through Reach Ivy, my message is be true to yourself. There is no shortcut to success. So you have to work hard, and that work should be your passion. If you do it halfway, you would not be happy. So true happiness is deciding your true calling, what you want to do. I could have been in the government today, but what I am out, I mean, people thought I was foolish to leave the civil services, such a
right.
difficult job. But I knew what I wanted to do. So ultimately, decide what you want and then pursue your calling. And that is what, and be happy. At any cost, if something is not giving you happiness, leave it. That's what I feel, and I tell my children all the time, are you happy? End of the day, if you are happy, then you've achieved in life. Otherwise, you may have the millions, you may have the best of the sea-facing houses, but if you don't have peace, I
Right.
don't think you've done anything in life.
And everything you're saying, you've been a practitioner, so you're truly practicing what you're preaching. And I think that's why, the metal in your words is much more solid and harder than, a lot of we get a lot of gyan from people, but when you live and you sort of walk the talk, those are the people I truly, admire. And thank you again, Abhaji.
Exactly. In fact, I tell my daughter when she repents on something, I said, see, I have followed only one line in my life. Jab jago to savera.
Correct, yes.
That means the day you decide it's morning for you, it's so it is not, it's never too late in life. In fact, I went to London School of Economics when I was 42.
Wow.
41, I won the Lead India scholarship, and Times of India gave me this leadership course. So, I mean, my son was 18 and my daughter was 13 when I went to LSE to do this course. And I
Wow.
realized it was a scholarship, like for a girl who got married without seeing her husband. I mean, it's such a young age where career was always secondary. I mean,
Right.
if I could reach London School of Economics on a Chevening scholarship with my merit, is
Wow.
what says that, sky is the limit. We
Absolutely.
set our own standards. So that's what life is all about.
Great. Thank you so much, Abhaji. And for you, I think even the sky is not the limit. You're just extending your personal boundaries every single morning. And I'm truly grateful for you for this dose of inspiration. I'm personally all fired up having talked to you. So I'm sure my students are as well. Thank you so much. And if you'd like, you can just leave the chat by saying thank you, by just ending the chat.
Yeah. Someone is asking how's the situation in Mumbai. Of course, Corona is very much there. So be safe and let's hope that we get out of this. And
Okay.
bye-bye. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Abhaji.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Lovely.
Bye.
Lovely talking to you.
Lovely. Thank
Bye.
you. Bye. Okay, guys, thank you so much for watching. We just have 60 seconds on the clock for the session to end. It's of course been fabulous talking to everyone. I'm really charged with all the stuff we learned from Abhaji today. Yes, thank you, Raj. I know, and I will transmit all her beautiful comments over back to her. As I said, this is a weekly career show, and today's episode was on law. The session will be put up on Insta Live on the ReachIvy page, on my page, reachivy.com. And if there are any specific careers that you guys are really interested in learning about, please DM me or just message us on our company page, and we'll be happy to think of a guest in that specific career. If you know someone who is a path-breaking professional who you think deserves a standing on our show, please definitely do connect us. And we look forward to a fabulous session next week. So stay tuned for more inspiration every week, and stay safe, guys, and really good to see you. So I'm just going to end the session. Thank you, Gauri, for joining. And I took a bunch of your questions, so I hope you got all of those answered. Thank you, Yasmin, Sabahat, Ankita, Chiru, of course, my favorite, Gina, Ankita, Merkaba, for always being so supportive. Gauri, I said, Vaishnavi, thank you all so much, guys. Aditya Bhatt, thank you for joining. Pankania, Stella, thank you, guys. I'm overwhelmed by the questions and the response. I'm going to let everyone go and have a good night's sleep. Thank you and good evening. Goodbye.